Tokyo residents are confused by this year's winter temperatures.
体がついていかないです。昨日は寒いと思ってても今日は暖かくて服装も困るし、大変ですね。
The unusual weather is also disrupting an annual tradition in the country. Japan's famous cherry blossoms, or sakura, are blooming ahead of schedule. While it may be a boon for snap-happy tourists, the early spring foreshadows a darker reality. Journalist Naoki Abe, who wrote an award-winning book about the subject, explains.
At the moment, spring is arriving earlier, the warmer weather is arriving earlier, but there is still sufficient chilly period in the winter. But if the winter temperature starts rising above 5 degrees, then they can't wake up. So that will be a problem in about perhaps 100 years or 200 years.
Sakura season normally starts between late March and early May, depending on where you are in the country. In 2024, amid Japan's second warmest winter on record, the blooms have begun up to 5 days ahead of schedule on average. In 2023, the sakura season started a record 10 days in advance in Tokyo, while this year in Okinawa, they bloomed 12 days earlier on January 5th. Millions of tourists travel every year specifically to witness the trees blooming, or hanami as it's called in Japanese. Over 3.5 million tourists traveled to Japan during the 2023 sakura bloom. Japanese authorities are expecting triple the number for the 2024 season. They may be among the last generation of tourists to ever witness the bloom of this particular variety of cherry blossom, according to a recently released report by the Japanese Meteorological Agency. It predicted a possible extinction of Yoshino trees, the most popular variety in some parts of the country. They may well disappear in the southern prefectures of Kagoshima, Miyazaki, and Nagasaki by 2100, according to the report.
In the long run, as the climate change, as the warming accelerates, and if it starts affecting the winter temperature, then the trees will get confused and they will not wake up properly. And then eventually that could lead to not blossoming at all.
Yoshino trees need to hibernate during winter at 5 degrees Celsius before it awakens for spring. The blooming process is divided into 3 parts: the awakening level, when the bud is forming; the growth level, when the bud breaks its dormant state; and finally, full bloom, before going back to slumber in autumn. Experts say Yoshino trees are also threatened by red-necked longhorn beetles, an invasive insect species that breeds in flowering trees imported via cargo from continental Asia. The Some Yoshino variety was first cultivated in the late 19th century as a result of a hybridization of different species. They quickly spread out to become the country's most widespread cherry tree species. But even if they were to disappear, other varieties more suited to a warmer climate will inevitably fill in the gap.
At the same time, we can really start thinking to plant other kinds of cherry trees, so that even if the climate change affects Yoshino cherries, which are most prevalent, we will be able to enjoy other kinds of cherry trees. So diversity is important.
Cherry blossoms occupy a very special place in Japanese culture.
The Japanese people have lived with cherry blossoms over 1,000 years, nearly 2,000 years. And always cherry blossoms symbolize a lot of things: peace, love, friendship, as well as, different symbolism of ephemerality of like a fleeting beauty. Or these cherry blossoms have been symbol of reproduction, or rice farming, or fishing even. So it's the symbolism of cherry blossoms is deeply engraved in Japanese people's psyche.
And just as Japanese scholar and philosopher Moturi Norinaga put it hundreds of years ago, if I were asked to explain the Japanese spirit, I would say it is wild cherry blossoms glowing in the morning sun.